Disclaimer. Opinions expressed are those of the content creators and do not represent any employer or entity. The information shared is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice or used in any legal capacity, including establishing standards of care. All efforts have been made to comply with HIPAA regulations. No guarantees are made regarding the accuracy of statements or opinions provided. Interaction with the podcast does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please enjoy this podcast responsibly.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Pod Patrol with your host, Dr. Jeff Dikis.
And Dr. Leland Jaffe.
How you doing today, Leland?
Good. Yourself?
Oh, doing fine. Hanging in there, plugging along. I had a busy day in clinic today. I had almost 40 patients today. Earlier this week, I had 26 or 27 and a half day. So
wow,
these are days that I'm getting home and I'm tired.
Yeah, I was thinking about calling in sick because it's opening day of March Madness. It should be a holiday.
Oh, I know. It's one of my favorite days of the year.
100%.
I love it. And then I start watching the games like, oh, no, missed that one. Oh, I missed that. Okay, I'm done. I thought I had a chance. Now, no, I'm done.
Yeah, I still got a horse in the race. So with U of I is under the round 2. So I can't remember when we were in the Sweet 16 last. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back into the mailbag. We've done a couple of these mailbag episodes previously, so we keep getting lots of questions from people, so we'll keep answering them. Let's jump back in here. All right, first question says, when is the best time to start a family? The answer is there isn't one, because if you're waiting for the best time, you're going to wait for a very long time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the answer that I think most people would provide when seeking advice on this question. For us, I can only speak from my experience. We had our first daughter, and granted, my wife is not a physician. She works in medical research. She has her master's in public health. So her schedule at the time was much more predictable than mine was. But we had our first daughter in right between my second and third year of residency. So it was a hectic time. In fact, we didn't have bedrooms. Her crib was like in a hallway.
Oh, really?
We lived in this duplex in Chicago. We didn't have anything. But like I said, it was definitely memories that tend to blossom over time. And, it was good times looking back on it.
Yeah, I don't think there is a best time. I think that you kind of just, whenever it makes sense for you and your significant other to just go ahead and do it and then figure it out. It's never really going to be easy. I'm specifically thinking, okay, the 3 options for anybody listening to this are going to be during school, during residency, or as a new attending. And if you think about those 3, none of them sound like a great time because you're extremely busy. I would say school, it would probably be the hardest time to do that. I think that's probably not the best time. So maybe I won't tell you the best time. I'll maybe tell you not the best time. School would be very difficult. Not impossible. Depends on if your significant other is also in school like mine was, or if they work from home. Maybe it is a great time. Maybe you came into school with kids. Everyone's situation is different. Speaking from my experience only, we had our first son in the end of the 3rd year of residency, with the thinking being that, we're a 3rd year, there's people to help out, we're not on general call anymore, we're getting towards the end, we're not as disruptive. Because if you wait until you're attending, until you are an attending, that's a little tricky walking in, interviewing for a job, and despite all the laws and intentions of them not being able to ask you if you're pregnant, it might be quite obvious that you are, And whether they realize it or not, that's going to factor into their decision of hiring someone. I
Yeah.
don't see how it can't. Even if it's not supposed to. Legally, it's not supposed to. I don't see how it can't factor in.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is maybe two guys talking about this aren't the best two to answer this question. We might need to bring Ashley on the podcast to give us the truth here.
You know what? That's probably a good call. All right, scratch everything we've said so far. We will engage other people who are much better at answering this in the future.
I've never felt more useless than when we were in labor. I even say we, kind of funny because I didn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah. So
I like when people say we had a baby. Like, no, you did not. We had a kid. No, you did not. That 99% of it was not you. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Let's engage some people who would have a better interpretation of that. But, I would say sometimes there isn't a best time, and sometimes you just figure out what makes the most sense for you and kind of go for it.
Definitely.
The next question says, how do I select my externships? So for those, I'm envisioning everyone listening to all of our great episodes in order so they know everything about us. But why don't you tell people that haven't heard what you do for your job?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I moved into an administrative role. So I'm the Associate Dean of Clerkship and Residency Placement. So each college has a department such as that counsels the students on selecting externships, which ultimately lead to residencies. And every year, keep in mind, for those students that are listening, you'll see students match with programs they did not extern with, but most do, right? So selecting your externships, which are your electives we're talking about, you want to do it strategically because quite often that's going to be a pathway for you to become a resident, because a lot of residencies do only select amongst their externs that visit them because they want to know who you are over a full month, right? How are you when you're tired, when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're stressed, right? They're not going to get that over a 15 to 30-minute interview during residency interviews. So how do you select your externships? Well, that's a lot to unpack. And I usually sit down with our students, and actually right now I'm in the process of meeting each one of our students for 30 minutes. We have these introductory counseling sessions, if you will. And I always ask similar questions, right? What are your goals, right? What's important to you? Is geography important to you? Do you want to work more urban or rural? Do you want to be in a program where there's 15 total residents or 6 total residents? How important to you are specific niches within podiatry like trauma, peds, deformity, sports med? Keep in mind that all residencies basically have the same minimal activity requirements that they need to be certified through CPME. But as we may or may not know, each residency has faculty that really specialize in a particular niche, whether it be doing, again, total ankles or peds or deformity or again, some of those other disciplines within our field. So, you should probably start becoming a little bit more aware of what programs exist sometime in your second year, because you're going to be applying for externships after your Part 1 boards, which takes place in July of your second year. And that's when you really, that's when deciding your externships really has to come into focus. What do you guys have in Iowa? How's that process unfold?
Which part? The selecting of the externships?
Yeah, just learning about externships and learning about what would be a good fit for you.
I'm not sure. Ashley would be a better person to answer that, and obviously Dr. Graham Bart would be a better person to answer that. I don't really know. I ask the students when they come on my rotation, hey, where are you going next year? I don't think I've really ever asked them, oh, how'd you pick those?
Sure.
But I think in my opinion, there are 2 ways that you can start the process. And one is geography, like you said. And the other is trying to pick what you interpret to be the top programs. That might be the best programs or just the best programs for you. And then once you've kind of figured out, okay, well, my family's in Baltimore, I want to be as close to Baltimore as possible. Well, then you probably don't even need to look at externships in New Mexico and Washington. So you've already narrowed it down significantly. So if you go off of geography, that's one thing. And some people don't. I have students that are going from Virginia to California to Chicago to Colorado, like in that order. And I'm like, wow,
That's
that
ambitious.
sounds, yeah, horrible. But that's a lot of driving. But sometimes you get the month that you get, and you just are happy to get a month at whatever program that you want to select. So I think you can either pick based on geography or whatever programs you've interpreted with some research and the assistance of your faculty at your school
Right.
to narrow down which programs you're zeroing in on to be the top programs for you. And then that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a month there. What percentage would you say of students get all of the externships that they want versus the majority of the ones they want?
Yeah, if I had to quantify, I would say about 75 to 80%. So most get most of what they're looking for. And keep in mind, you can get an externship for a program where you're not going to be considered as a candidate for residency. So keep that in mind. So basically, what I mean by that is if let's say that a program has a threshold of 3.5 GPA for considering interviewing for residency, you might be offered an externship with a 3.0 GPA, but they might not consider you for residency placement. So keep that in mind. And so I think students need to have a good self-awareness of where they stand academically so that you don't load up your externship schedule with a bunch of programs that are going to be outside of what you're going to qualify for based on your class rank or GPA or other metrics that they're looking at. So I think that's important to have a good self-awareness when you're selecting these.
Which I think is stupid, by the way, when programs have these GPA cutoffs. I've met hundreds, maybe not thousands, hundreds and hundreds of students over the years, whether it was while I was a resident or in my current job.
Right.
A high GPA does not always correlate with someone that I would want to spend time with, who is a good learner, who works hard, shows up early, is interested, asks all the right questions.
Sure.
I don't think that applies to this question. I'm just throwing in my unwanted 2 cents on when they create these kind of weird, arbitrary GPAs and exclude some of the students that actually I think are better. And I'm going back to my time in residency when we would have students come through. We had top students who I couldn't stand and students that were lower that I thought were great and turned out to be fantastic residents. So
yeah,
don't
no,
get
I
too...
completely agree with you. I speak to a lot of externship directors and residency directors, and I hear consistently that they have 2.8s outperform 3.8s all the time.
Right.
So I couldn't agree with you more. But the fact of the matter is those cutoffs do exist. Yes. And so you do want to have an awareness so that you don't price yourself out and put yourself at a disadvantage come match time.
Sure. What textbook should I bring on rotations? So just to let you know, I read this question out loud and Ashley laughed at me. She said, textbooks? She's like, students don't have textbooks. And I was like, why not? She's like, yeah, they just don't have textbooks anymore. I find a physical copy of something so much better than a PDF where I'm scrolling or clicking or doing. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's old school, but I would much rather have a newspaper or a magazine than a website. That being said, do you see students with textbooks?
No.
Right.
However, this question does get presented to me though. Okay. There's a lot of PDF versions of the textbooks that we're all quite familiar with. And I find it incredibly difficult to find what I'm looking for. But I'm the same mindset as you. I've never read on an e-reader or Kindle. I always have a physical book that I'm, thumbing through and such. Even today I was prepping for a case and I have a physical surgical textbook that I'm going through. Mm-hmm. So, I think I don't know how your experience was, but these surgical textbooks are very expensive. And if you're on a budget, especially as a student, it can be difficult to purchase these. when I was a resident, we had this program through one of the orthopedic companies where we did online modules, earn points, and then able to purchase books for free. I don't
Yeah,
know
we
if
did
that
that
still
too.
exists today, but that definitely saved a lot of money.
That
Um,
was awesome. I got so
it
many good
was,
books that way.
yeah, absolutely. But in terms of textbooks, I think you need a good surgical textbook that helps you to understand the steps of doing surgery, not necessarily all the historical information about it, but just step by step. This is the incision. These are the vital structures you're going to encounter during your dissection. These are the different fixation techniques, plan A, plan B, plan C. This is the postoperative protocol, right? So that's the kind of book you want to look for. I don't know if you want to, should we mention brand names of books or the titles? I don't think there's a problem with that.
No, we did in previous episodes, so I think that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, in my what I go to the most these days is there's a 2-volume Coughlin and Mann foot and ankle surgical textbook that I think really has a good how to do surgery.
Hmm.
A little bit of an older book, but the Chang's foot and ankle surgery also has a really nice how to. I think it has good color photographs and a good step by step approach of how to do surgery. So there it is.
There we
So
go.
that's it. Yeah. So man, mine's a lot more beat up than that. But
Well, that's because I haven't
there.
opened it yet. I haven't even used this thing's pristine.
Yeah, that binding
Well,
is pretty
I haven't
pretty
cracked it
intact there.
open yet. And here's the other one. I'm only
Yeah.
showing you because they're literally right here in my office, and I
Yeah.
open them quite frequently. I think
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
very, very helpful to have
Yeah.
those.
Definitely. Definitely. And I think going into surgery with again when we're talking about a student going on rotations, you will not necessarily be expected to have the best dissection technique and know how to do all the technical aspects of surgery because you haven't been taught all of that yet. But there's no excuse for not knowing the anatomy, not knowing about the surgery, not knowing about the surgical technique, right? So those are
Right.
things that you're going to be able to prepare for ahead of time, and those are definitely fair questions that the attendings or residents might throw your way in the operating room.
Yeah. So just to summarize, I think Coughlin and Mann,
Mm-hmm.
Chang, McGlamry's, and then this one right here, which I don't know how to pronounce, but that's what it looks like if you find it.
Yeah. The other one I brought on
Fantastic.
rotations. Yeah, if you're looking for a good medicine resource, if you're doing a lot of medical management and you're on IM service or need to reference it, I have a small the University of Massachusetts internal medicine or pocket medicine, I think it's called. But that was a lifesaver too. Just a really small book that fits in your lab coat that you can really resource or reference, I should say, updated guidelines on how to treat certain medical conditions. So that was helpful too.
I would imagine, and maybe I'm getting too old, so forgive this question. The younger people are going to laugh. Do you still have a library? Is there a reason to have a library? I was envisioning that the schools might have a copy of each of these books, and you could even go and look at them and leaf through them first before you selected which one you'd want to purchase. But I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
Yeah, it's probably a thing. I think most of the students, though, that are looking to purchase a book probably go to their faculty because we have these all on our bookshelves in our office
Sure,
at
there
the
you go.
at the university.
There you go.
So
There's a resource for you.
yeah, yeah. So those are probably the most important ones. A couple other books that I really think are valuable that I obtained as a resident was the basic and the advanced AO course. They have a good I have a PDF copy of it actually, if anybody wants a copy. But basically, it's um, a step by step of how to do internal fixation
Hmm.
for everything as simple as a hallux IP joint fusion to doing rear foot fusions, pylon fractures, etc. So I like that, and I actually reference that still because it gives you how to do the same surgery multiple different ways, right? So if plan A fails and your screw fixation or your plate isn't holding, how can you achieve the same fixation maybe with K wires or cerclage wiring or different techniques to do the same surgery? So I think that's
Hmm.
always a good idea to go into surgery with plan A, plan B, plan C.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
says, how do I get my dream residency and dream job? You may or may not have control over this. Your dream job and your dream residency may or may not be realistic for you. I do not believe in luck. I say that all the time. I don't believe in luck. I look around. Hell, you drive a nice car. You got a nice family. You got a nice house. Oh, you're so lucky. Well, you can be appreciative of the things that you have, but I don't believe in luck because I worked hard for all of those things. I put in extra time and effort and energy and planning and all these things to set yourself up for success. The things that happen are directly related to how much time and energy you put into them. If you study hard, you work hard, you show up early on your rotations, you act interested, you ask good questions, you're more likely to get your dream residency. If you act interested, you have a good interview, you're personable, you do all the right things on your job interview, you're going to get your dream job. And if you don't, you may not. So that's maybe oversimplifying it, but you're in control of the outcome of based on how much time and energy and effort you put into something. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I'll take a little bit of a different approach. In terms of luck, I'm still waiting to win Powerball, so that would be true luck. Hasn't happened.
Right.
But although I don't buy lottery tickets, I actually bought one lottery ticket once in my life. I was driving to an early surgery and I was just like tired and depressed. I'm like, where do people win lottery? It's usually they pull off the highway and buy a ticket at a random gas station. So that's what I did and didn't win anything. So
and you lost.
Yeah,
then you were even more tired.
Yeah. So I'll take a little bit of a different approach. I do agree with everything you said in terms of forging your own pathway and really making your own opportunities. But how to get your dream residency and your dream job, I think a lot of it also falls on networking. A lot of it is not necessarily what you know, but who you know. Both are important, obviously, but the position I'm in now was very much by maintaining an open network and a good relationship professionally with the people that were still up at the university when I left. So I would say the bigger you can expand your professional network, and by helping others and by putting good energy out there, usually that tends to come back your way. So
100%.
I mean that's important at the student level, at the resident level, at the attending level. I'm always trying to do everything I can to help others without necessarily expecting anything in return. And good things come your way. Like, for example, in the last 2+ years since being on social media and putting myself out there and trying to expand my network on LinkedIn, multiple opportunities have come my way, personally and professionally. And again, it's really not because I'm just lucky. It's putting forth the effort to make those connections. So I'd say networking is really important.
I agree. And I'm going to spin this in a direction that some may not see coming. I think that it is extremely important for students to go to class. I have so many students that say, I don't go to class. Number one, you're missing out on the actual experience of being in professional school. You could take it or leave it, but I think you're missing out on it. But number two, you're missing out on probably the most important thing. And if you want to look at it as a selfish reason, you can do that. And that's what you said, which is networking. When you show up to campus and you meet the students in the year directly ahead of you and directly behind you, as well as your co-residents, your co-students, your same year students, these are the people that are going to allow you to network. One of the reasons I think that I was able to get UPMC as a resident, as an extern, I should say, and then become a resident, was because I knew some of the people that had matched there. I already knew them before I went there. I had laid foundation, not on purpose. I wasn't, purposely thinking, I got to try to meet these people so it'll help me later. I just met them and known them and been in some similar clubs on campus as people that matched there. And so when I showed up, oh, hey, yeah, how's it going? Oh, you remember me? Yeah, that you're halfway there. We already know each other. That was a way to network, but just by going to class, showing up to campus. I'm always astounded when I hear about students not showing up to campus. It is a big pet peeve of mine. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. I'll go on a rant another day because this is getting
Mhm.
completely off topic. But circling back, I 100% agree with you about networking.
Mhm.
And people are like, well, how do I network? Well, you show up to class, you show up to campus, you join these clubs, you you meet your classmates. These are the people. I can't tell you. I have one, maybe five, either people that I went to school with or residency with that are residency directors now, right? Those are just little network people that I've met along the way that have gone on to become a different level of provider. And maybe one of those places is somewhere I want to work or someplace that I want to live or someplace that I want to be. And by networking and knowing these people, that is only going to help you in the future. So I 100% agree with networking.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think? Do you think students should go to class? Or are we opening up a can of worms?
Yeah, no, I do think so. I mean, that's a whole other episode, I think, and we could definitely talk about the pros and cons and really if there are any cons. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits. Certainly what you were talking about in regards to forging and building that foundation in those relationships, but even just from a learning standpoint and being involved in active learning and um, the students that I can help the most are the ones I actually know, and the ones I actually know are the ones that come to class and come to my
Right.
office, right? So if
Exactly.
I know you on a professional level, if we get to know each other personally, if I know what's important to you, it's so much easier for me to help you and to really
Yeah.
propel you forward. If you're kind of that wallflower or just studying behind the scenes and you kind of show up for exams, but I don't really know you, it's really hard for me to help you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think coming to class is much more valuable than some people maybe give it credit for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Next question says, what are some considerations when transitioning from student to resident and then to attending?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. This is an interesting question because, we're getting close to that. So we're a couple of months away from the class of 24 moving on to residency training. So it's probably on the mind of a lot of the students right now is, am I prepared to be a resident? Right.
Right.
Let me tell you, there's no magical switch that gets flipped when you suddenly get your doctorate degree and now you're given more responsibilities, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and the same thing when you become an attending, right? You just happen to finish the fulfillment of your residency training and now you have that attending status. There's no switch that's flipped. Having said that, I think some of the most important things to understand is try to foster that lifelong learning mentality where you will never know everything. Let me rephrase that. You'll never know everything.
Yeah.
um Hopefully you'll put yourself in the room where you're not the smartest person in the room and other people are challenging you and helping you grow and learn. When you're a resident, there are some residents that kind of have an ego that comes with that. Just keep yourself humbled, and I think that'll go a long way. So I mean, going from student to resident, there's probably not a major mindset that's switched, other than you're gonna have more responsibility and you're gonna be doing a lot of things for the first time. And so I would just encourage you to embrace that, but it's still, don't forget to ask for help when needed. Right? You're not expected to know everything. So definitely reach up towards your second or chief residents to kind of help pull you up along the way. That's certainly what most of us did, including myself. So yeah, those are some of the words of advice going from student to resident is just, I think my confidence level, especially when I was a resident, would climb. And then when I'm attending, it plummeted because, there was a lot of uncertainties. Am I
Yeah.
qualified for this? Making the right decision for this patient.
Yeah.
What if
Right.
this happens? What if that happens? Right. So it
Yeah.
becomes a little bit, there's definitely a learning curve to feeling comfortable in each of these different roles as you climb that ladder.
Yeah. I'm going to try to make an analogy, and I don't know if it'll work or not, but going from student to resident is like going from a hot tub to the shallow end of the pool. It's not that different. You can still stand up. You're not going to drown. There's people around. There's lots of help. And going from resident to attending is moving from the shallow end to the deep end. You're
Mm-hmm.
much more on your own. There's a much bigger difference going from resident to attending than there is from student to resident, in my mind, because all of a sudden when you're an attending, you're in charge. You're making the decisions. When do I follow up? How long do I have to be off of work? When you fill out my paperwork, you know, I'm on short-term disability. Can you fill out this? What are my restrictions? Can I lift, you know, push, pull, or lift more than 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds? You're like, oh my God, I don't know. Whatever you want to do. I have no clue. Do whatever you want. Just don't walk on your foot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that it's designed in a way that kind of eases you from student to resident. I don't think it's as challenging as sometimes you think that it might be, because there is so much support. You're not the only one there. There's people around. There's senior residents. There's attendings. There's a structure set up to that. And so that transition is usually pretty fluid. The transition from resident to attending might be a lot, you know, different depending on where'd you go. Did you go to a group with some other people, or are you the only podiatrist in this group? Did you
Mm-hmm.
go to a city where there's multiple other people, or are you the only show in town? That can be a much more stark contrast to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because no one's looking over your shoulder anymore. And if things are going south, you can't hand it back to the person in charge in the operating room. So it's on you,
Right.
right? So you have to be able
Yeah.
to take a deep breath, slow things down, and really work your way through whatever complication is happening at that particular time.
But that being said, though, I don't want to make it sound like it's just this horrible thing that, you know, you're going to drown in the deep end. That's not the point of the analogy. I think if you continue the same analogy, you didn't have to learn how to swim in the hot tub, but you were getting used to the water. In the shallow end, you could stand up, you could float a little bit, you're starting to get your feet under you, and you're learning to swim so that by the
Mhm.
time you get to the deep end, you know how to swim. You're treading water, you know how to do all the strokes, the backstroke, the butterfly, whatever, and you're doing just fine. So I think the transition is designed in a way that kind of prepares you for being an attending.
Mhm.
So regardless of what you do yourself, the whole process is designed, at least now, with school and then the 3-year surgical residency plus or minus fellowship, to get you ready to be an attending. It's all kind of this fluid transition that kind of just makes sense as you go through it. If you jump from a student to an attending, you went hot tub to deep end, you're going to sink. It's not going to
Yeah.
work. But as you
Yeah.
move along, it just kind of works itself out.
Yeah. I like that. I think the analogy that I was expecting you to say is when you go from the hot tub to the shallow end of the pool, that hot to cold water puts your
Yeah.
body into a state of shock.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's that too. I mean, it is a change, right? It is going
Yeah.
from student to resident. There's much more responsibility, and there is a change there, and there's supposed to be. You're preparing you to be an attending surgeon, a person that someone comes to you and entrusts you to do surgery and take care of
Right.
them, and you know there's a lot of responsibility and not to be taken lightly. So I think that you kind of just go with the flow, and things kind of prepare you whether you're ready to be prepared or not.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll say about this when you're an attending is that doesn't mean your learning is stopped, right? You can still do courses, you can still seek out guidance and mentorship from people in your practice or in the community. Um, if something comes in that's above your expertise level, there's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion or referring to a colleague that's more equipped to handle that certain pathology. And then maybe you can scrub with them and learn some new skills along the way, right? Hopefully you're continuing to grow and develop your skill set as you move through your career.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought as well. So I think we'll leave that there and kind of pick back up at another future time as far as the mailbag goes, as we continue to accumulate questions from students and listeners over time. So
Yeah,
what do you
absolutely.
think about my hat? I'm rocking the Pod Patrol gear.
Yeah, I'd
Can you
be
see that?
lying if I said I wasn't a little jealous.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh there.
Yeah.
So I like it because people can't even buy it, right? So I'm
Yeah.
not wearing it because I'm like, oh, go to our merch store. I'm buying it. I'm wearing it because it's like, you can't have this. You
Yeah.
want this, but you can't have it.
The demand you're creating is on a whole other level.
I mean, if I get enough people that want to buy it, then yeah, sure, you can buy it. But like, there is no merch store, at least not yet. I mean, maybe we should set something up. Like if we get to, 1,000
Downloads.
YouTube subscribers or something like that, then we'll create a merch store and people can
Yeah.
buy something.
And someone can
them.
buy my halogen bat lamp above me too.
Well, that's for sale.
Yeah, it could be if the price is right.
I might
It
buy
might be
it.
tough to let go of that one, but
I'll send you this hat if you send me that bat. Hat for
Deal.
a bat.
Deal.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Pod Patrol with your host, Dr. Jeff Dikis.
And Dr. Leland Jaffe.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care.